This episode of Angles is brought to you by Richmond Personal Injury Attorneys. Expect high-level communication, transparency, and cutting-edge technology to keep your case moving. Expect a legal team that's laser-focused and moves fast to get the results you deserve. When the unexpected happens, expect Richmond Vona. Learn more at richmondvona.com. 192 Seneca Street, Buffalo, New York. Welcome to Angles, the podcast where we dig into the stories behind impactful people and explore the sharp turns, daily decisions, and defining moments that shape how they got to where they are and how they keep moving forward. I'm John Richmond, and every week I sit down with guests who are building bold, meaningful lives and careers in Buffalo and beyond. If you enjoy these conversations, please hit follow, subscribe, drop a comment, or share the episode. It's a simple way to help us grow with the community and keep these stories coming. What does it really take to build a winning culture? One where people feel seen, valued, and accountable. Today on Angles, we're talking with Trevor Large, head coach of the Canisius D1 men's hockey team and one of the sharpest minds in leadership and culture in hockey. Trevor shares how he's shaped young athletes into great men, how he builds trust inside the locker room, and what leaders in any field can learn from the game of hockey. It's about mindset, connection, and finding purpose beyond the scoreboard. Let's get into it. All right, Trevor, what's going on, man? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, really excited, John. I love what you're doing. Talking to people in and around Buffalo. We got some connection and ties, so excited to get into it.
That's right. I know. I was going to intentionally say really excited to have the first real hockey coach on the podcast, so that when Barnett heard it, he would flip out. But I'm not going to say that. But hey, first Division I hockey coach. I'm surprised it's taken this long. But super happy to have you. And I wanted to kind of like jump right into it because obviously you're obsessed with hockey. You have a huge love for the game. You've been playing it your whole life. Can you kind of talk about, maybe life growing up playing hockey and when you realized that it's not just maybe not just a game to you, it was really, really a love or a passion?
Yeah, I would. I'm happy to. Obviously, when you're in the podcast world, some of these things are going to be about me. I can tell most people that know me, it's not my favorite thing to talk about myself. So we're going to get through this as quickly as we can. We see we got more to talk about.
Yeah.
The way I would explain that, whenever you get into coaching, I think it's obviously similar to teaching. There's going to be some type of calling, I think, in everybody's life to try to figure out who am I. Really, what's my passion? What do I like doing? And that's what we're here to talk about, right? It is hockey, but I don't think we're going to talk a lot about forecheck and neutral zone defense today. No. I don't think, John, unless you really want to. But
no.
For the listeners, I'm from just outside of Toronto. Just to get a quick story with some background. Grew up playing hockey my whole life, in other sports as well, but hockey became, obviously one of my driving forces in what I'm doing. I'm 45 years old and still involved in the game. So lots of roller coaster ride through, obviously, youth hockey growing up in and around Toronto. The way I would explain it just quickly, my dad played a high level of junior hockey in the area. His team was the Dixie Beehives, and anybody that wants to look that up, it's awesome. My dad had the big sideburns and
yes,
Kentucky Fried Chicken ads, all of the above, right? Just what the 70s are in hockey is great. But I definitely get my love of hockey from him. My mom is a behavioral teaching assistant, recently retired. So I know I get my love for teaching from her. Those two things in my life experience have allowed me to do what I love. I get to teach the game of hockey, and it's not just hockey. It's going through life to young men that are going through the program, and obviously I get to coach the game of hockey, which is a passion of mine, and I love the game. So it's if you're trying to figure out about me, that's where I would definitely start.
So it really is always interesting. I think as kids, we appreciate our parents, but probably not as much as we should. And later on in life, you understand, especially obviously we're going to be biased as hockey players, but just the absolute commitment, whether it's to hockey or any, especially this day and age, so to sports in general, when kids play at competitive levels, but then realizing when you become an adult and you find your calling or your passion, how probably you got some of that from your parents, or a lot of it, or even like a blend of both of them, and how those things come together. Um, I'm guessing you've had a lot of time to reflect on that now. I could just tell by the way you started off talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think everybody goes through this, right? Like when you're, I'll just say young, when you're you're trying to get these things, and when we might talk about like personality development, all those things. I'm not sure where we're going to take this thing, John, but one of the things I've learned is if you do anything with a personality assessment or trying to figure out like who you are, it's whether it's colors or letters, there are lots of them that are out there. That's like one piece of who you are, right? Like it's, just in your core. Um, and I think equally important is, the moral compass that you create. And that's probably, what you're talking about when you're, young and paying attention to your parents and what are they trying to talk to you about. And, you get info. I have my older brother is 5 years older than me. I have a younger brother, 3 years younger. So you go through those things with them. Obviously, your friends as well are a part of your moral compass. And it really it's shaping you, right? Especially at a young age, what's right and wrong. Um, and then you go through this, I'm not going to say rebellion because I don't think it's that way for everybody, but you get this life experience that's really going to start, bringing you through high school. And then for me, obviously into junior hockey and then into college hockey, and beyond. And when you're in those 20s, they're such an influential part of your life. Who are you connecting with? Who are you talking to? I met my wife, Molly, in my time at Fair State in college. Very lucky that I met her, and we have two great kids now, and have the quote unquote American dream, right? Um, but it's that whole journey that you're trying to figure out, what are your passion and what makes you happy. And I think it takes us down that path. I was lucky enough to find a passion and something I'm very serious about. And what I've learned is it's really not just hockey, right? It's so much more than that, as we're trying to guide our players and as they go out in that youth in their 20s to try to figure out, where are they going. And there's so much change for them, to all of us, I think, that happens in our 20s. But we are able to be versatile, and where are we going to go and where are we going to live and who are we going to be around. And the job changes so much. I'd like to say that I've settled down and I know exactly what I'm going to do, but the reality is I don't think any of us are.
Yeah, I agree. And it's such a more complex world these days too, right? I mean, especially you're educating, mentoring young men. And like you said, it's not just about hockey. I mean, hockey's one part of it, of course. That's why they're at Canisius playing. Um, but for the vast majority of them, it ends at Canisius as well, which can be a really tough pill to swallow, and can be very hard to kind of like recalibrate when your whole life has been around one thing, which is hockey. Because if you're playing Division 1 hockey, there's no question that, absent maybe a couple of freak athletes out there who like could have done what, like, played a few different sports, like your whole life you had like blinders on, and this is like all you were doing. And then you play your last college game, and it's like, whoa, like, now what do I do next? And it sounds like you guys at Canisius understand that. I think, at least from even just talking to you for 5 minutes, like maybe better than at least when I was growing up and playing, coaches did then. And that could just be like a maturation of the game or the thought process. But can you kind of walk through like your approach to, working with young players, meaning like 18-year-old kids or 20-year-old kids coming in, and how you're helping develop them as good human beings, not just hockey players?
For sure. And again, for the audience, this is obviously, hopefully everybody can understand this. We're going to talk a little bit about hockey today for obvious reasons, but this could be anything,
For sure.
right? It's the reality of what you're talking about, John, is, they have that life experience, and to get here, they've had probably some really good success in the game. It's difficult to get to Division 1 college hockey if you haven't had a lot of success at a younger age, and up in your teenage years. You probably have become a really good player. um, I will tell you, it gets very difficult to do what you're talking about, and what we're trying to do is have them understand that your value to us is not that you're a hockey player, right? It doesn't, they have to go together. But if And this does happen. I'll be completely honest. We do get players that their own self-image is that they are a hockey player. And it
Yeah.
even goes even deeper. They might go, well, I'm a goal scorer, right? Their whole life they've been their value in what they're interacting with coaches and teammates is, and sometimes parents and loved ones, it's that, well, I'm a goal scorer. And then what happens to us all is eventually we get to an environment where, well, you're not that anymore.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean you do not have value. You may have to be a little stubborn in an area. You may need to add to your game. But really what we're trying to do is have, players and people understand that they're the value to the team. It's who they are as a person. They may not know it yet or understand that. But I think it's easily explained that once hockey players are done with the game, the things they miss, like people from my generation and older and younger, we just had an alumni event on. So we had all generations of Griffs that are back on campus. And yes, we all miss playing, but we miss being in the locker room.
100%.
You miss the connection with people. You will score big goals. You will make great plays. All of those things are there. But if that's the only thing that brings you happiness, it's a dangerous thing to focus on, right? Because scoring goals can be a little bit in our control, but as an individual player, we're going against an opponent. There's things that may happen in the game that have nothing to do. You may get hurt, right? And now all of a sudden, if the only thing that you feel that you bring value is gone, that's lonely. And we want people in our program to understand that it's actually who you are that has value that will be remembered, not any goal that you're going to score. And obviously, we've had some guys that have scored some big goals, but you'll be remembered for who you are, not a goal that you scored.
Yeah, and that's 100% accurate. Like people ask me or I'll ask other people, it's usually coming at me like, "Oh, what do you miss playing at Miami?" I'm like, "Yeah, like of course like I miss like some of those big moments where like you'll never forget like the feeling of this or that right on the ice, but it's really the thing you think about are like the locker room time, like the bus rides, like, being in the trenches with guys. I mean, obviously the pranks we played on each other, like stuff like that. Like it was all innocent stuff, but it was fun, right? And really, what is that? That's connection. That's human connection. That's having. I think we forget like it's rare to have the opportunity to spend that much time with people and to become that close with people who aren't your family. And it can be, like in my business, we try the best we can to try to some degree or as best we can to recreate like that closeness and that like that feeling of like, hey, we're all in this kind of thing together, which just breeds like friendship and respect and accountability and all these, great lessons that people can take with them wherever they go in life. But it really comes down to right building the culture, for those people to thrive in. And, culture is such a buzzword these days, but I could tell you take that really seriously. How when you think about like there's so many parallels here, like you've talked about like, oh, we're talking about hockey, but it applies to other things. It does. And like so you could take, for instance, like recruiting, and we'll call that hiring or whatever. Like how do you start, assessing people in that process to determine whether or not you think they're going to be a good fit for your culture at Canisius?
Right. So there's layers to this whole thing. And I think this is applicable in the, quote unquote real world, right?
Yeah.
Any job, the lessons that you learn in sport, any sport, I think has extreme value, right? So it's a performance sector, right? On a weekend, you spend the whole week, and then we play Fridays and Saturdays. You remember this, John? Like you're then judged on success, whether you won or lost over the weekend, right? And during a game, during a shift, you're going to have to do these things too. It's the part that I love about hockey the most is I can make a mistake, and in 3 seconds, I can turn around and get the puck back. That's what I love about the game. Golf is beyond frustrating. It's my new but you got to think about that shot and go walk over for a few minutes into the woods and try to get yourself out of it. Right? That's a whole different ballgame, not as equipped to handle that. But what sport teaches you is you may be down, right? In the real world, your sales may be down. You may lose a case. You may there's lots of ways that life is going to hit you, and you have to be able to pick yourself up.
Yeah,
So
that is
overall,
very true.
right, that's one of the things I love about sport. Now to get into a little bit more what you're talking about, like, so if there's 20, you're talking about relationships, and it's really important. If you're talking about 27 people, so whether that's a team putting on a podcast or a hockey team, obviously 27 is close to the number that we work with. That's 351 relationships, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
never just me and 27 players. They each have their own relationship. It's what you're talking about, the things you miss in the locker room, the guys you're close with. You might live with some, you might not spend a lot of time with others, but those are all relationships that are going to help the culture. Um, and what I've learned is, man, I wish I could. I wish I could just put the words on the wall and then walk away and be like, our culture's dialed in,
Right.
right? There's human beings. Like we're not robots. I can't do that. Um, and the beauty of it all is I know that as a leader, I'm going to influence the culture. And I know that the culture is going to drive success. So those are the wins and losses. I can't skip the middle step there. I can't go, I need to influence wins and losses. That's very, very difficult. So my job is to help guide our players on here's like we have to work on this together. Who are we? What is our culture? When we say what's a grift, we need to have an answer. And if we're all over the place, we might win. And it becomes more of a coin flip.
Yep.
We'd rather not do that. So, you need inclusive partnership with leadership and leaders on the team so that we can, have really strong 351 relationships. But we have to have some clarity there. And you talk about recruiting, you talk about hiring, those things are vital.
Oh
We
yeah.
can have the best culture in the world, but if we hire or bring in the wrong people that do not believe in that don't have a moral compass that will make that go, and maybe do not have the life experience that would work well, we're just going to do this in those relationships too much. We need some friction. It's a competitive sport. There needs to be friction. It's not rainbows every day and all. It's not. It's a roller coaster. College hockey's difficult. Some guys play, some guys don't. There's personal friction. We have to be able to handle all of those things. So we need to find the right people that fit. When they get here, we can say, hey, this is who we are, and this is why we recruited you, because we know and feel through that research that this is actually what you want, and you're going to flourish here. And you have to be able to find those types of people that are going to fit the culture that you're creating. Right? Makes sense. Easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure. One mistake that I made early on in growing the firm or running the business was, when I would be recruiting or through the hiring process, talking to people, I didn't do a good enough job of really, really explaining our culture, like the non-negotiables, like who we are, explaining how hard and how demanding we are. On the flip side, we would always talk about, because we're really proud of our culture and our people and how close knit we are and how we're aligned. But you know, right? If you want to be the best at anything or be excellent at anything, it's really, really hard. The standards have to be high. And I think that most people and they'll say it, and I think they actually believe, like, I do want to be that. Like, I want to be part of that. But then, like you're saying, how do you figure out, like, especially with young people, like we're talking a lot of times 17, 18-year olds, right? Like, who are still trying to figure themselves out. How do you attempt to assess, like, this person's saying the right things, but like, do they really want this? Are they really going to be a good fit here?
Right? You're really talking about leadership, right? And things that you learn along the way, and I I love the topic. Leadership is my passion. It's what I find is, I don't know if you felt this, John, but anybody that's trying to find out about leadership, there's going to be most books that you're going to read are going to tell you a story about a leader. Very, very few tell you how to do this,
Yeah.
right? Like it's alarming, to be honest. And I think this happens in the business world. It definitely happens in the hockey world. All of a sudden you get named head coach and you're supposed to have everything figured out in terms of leadership.
Yeah.
Right? You get a promotion in a job and all of a sudden you're director, or it's like, if you haven't had leadership training, it's a little bit of my frustration. Why do people assume just because you get a title or a promotion that all of a sudden you're a great leader?
Yeah. That happens all the time.
Right. And the reality is 99% of people, they just want to fit in. Right. Leadership is very lonely. I want everybody to understand it is very lonely.
For sure.
You wake up. I remember it. I remember it vividly. It was 9 years ago. I'm not going to tell you the date because that's not my style. But I remember when I was named head coach, and I was told this, and this is very true. The next morning you wake up and you are the driving force of the program. Where are we going is now on me or you when you're in charge. And you have to say, we're going in that direction. And now you're trying to motivate people to follow you, right? That has some real challenges, especially when I said, 99% of people, they just want to fit in. So what we're on the hunt for and searching for is people that can now be a part of the culture that we're defining. But this magical one, I do think this is the hardest by far, especially in your 20s. How do you hold people accountable to a standard without me?
Yeah.
And it's not just me, but without, a head coach or a coach there. How do you hold your peers accountable? And that becomes probably the hardest part of my job, is to try to help them with that. And they got to try it. They got to fail. They have to try things and be like, that didn't work. But the reality is leaders can't ignore things that happen, right? The 99% of people, you might see something that happens in your work environment and you're just going to let it go because it's not really my responsibility to step into that conflict and handle it. That's not my job. It's not my role. I don't have that title. That's probably the hardest part, is to, manage those tensions for a group of 30 young adults who are on their journey. And it's tough to tell your buddy that he's screwing up.
Yeah. I mean, and that, I can only imagine, because like with younger people, we obviously have different age ranges at our firm, but I could tell you, as you can imagine, or I'm sure you already know, it's still difficult when you're asking people to lead from the middle, or to be radically candid with one another when somebody's not meeting the standard, and that you could do and get people to actually do it, and then do it in a professional and respectful way, and in a way, and communicate it in a way that the other person is going to be receptive. And that's something that I've learned the hard way as a leader is, I'm a very I could take assessments or whatever, and it all confirms this, but
Yep.
I'm very direct. I want you to tell me if I screwed up, just tell me to my face I screwed up. Tell me what I can do better. I'm going to own it. I'm going to move forward. Don't sugarcoat it. But most people don't want that. And like you said, most people want harmony. They want peace around them. So that can really be a struggle, to have to step in. And people know what right from wrong. They know when something is not being done correctly or needs to be addressed, but it's special. And it's actually, I'm sure you see this, it's a great feeling when you see people emerging as leaders because they're doing those things.
100%. And you have to guide them too, right? I'm not perfect at, we're talking about feedback. I think it's really difficult. There's things I'm trying to learn how to, these things resonate with some people, but feed forward, right? Don't feedback. Try to talk about, it gets to be a little bit in video. If you think about, a typical hockey coach, I think what we both experienced, John, is, you go into a video session after a weekend, and it's really easy to do this. Hockey's a game of mistakes. Let's put all the errors up and just be like, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. And we're trying to do the opposite. When we're trying to give feedback, we have to do those things sometimes for all of us to learn. But we're not going to beat somebody down if everybody knows that they just made an honest, nobody makes a mistake on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't happen. You turn one over and it goes in the back of your net. You're not trying to do that. So those wouldn't be things that we're showing, but we're trying to find players doing what we're asking for and showing that, right? what I've learned also is this, the sandwich thing that we used to have, like bad, good,
Yeah.
bad, doesn't work. So anybody that's using that, I would, give me a call and I'll give you a different way to do it, because people just remember the bad,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
They
for sure.
don't take the good away from it. They're just like, man, or sorry, I meant good, bad, good, right? You're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
sandwich in this little bad thing that I want you to change. That doesn't work. There's, trying to find a better way to do it. And if you're just telling people good job all the time, it's just flattery. There doesn't have any substance to it. And I don't know if you know this, John, but like, you say like you're that dominant personality that you want very direct feedback. It's 10% of the world is like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's like why I learned such a hard lesson. Like I'm thinking like in my own stupid head, like, well, don't they want it just like clean and direct? And then you realize, and I'm not even saying like, not yell. You're not yelling at anybody. You're not swearing at anybody. It's like, you're just having a conversation, but just being that direct when 90% of people don't receive communication or feedback well that way, they're not listening to you after you like the first sentence out of your mouth. They're just like basically retracting into themselves, like being like, how do I get out of here? I'm uncomfortable.
Right. There's a lot of people that don't like conflict, right? For some reason, that's not conflict to you though. That's just, I'm telling you, I'm communicating with you the way I would want somebody to communicate with me.
Right.
Right. And along this journey, you're trying to figure out, well, you actually need to communicate with somebody. Like you got to be aware of them as well.
We'll be right back after a word from our partners.
After an accident, life can be scary, stressful, tricky. You need Richmond Bona to help navigate the process, because getting a life-changing settlement can not only take time, it can take an emotional toll. The team at Richmond Bona provides high levels of support through all the ins and outs, so you get the settlement you need and the new beginning you deserve.
When the unexpected happens, expect Richmond Bona.
Now back to the conversation.
Right. Those are the best teams. Those are the best leaders that understand. You've heard this before in coaching, right? Some players need a pat on the back. Some players need a kick in the butt. Well, if you do the wrong one to the wrong player, you're crushing their spirit. So getting to know them and trying to understand which one are they. And there's others, by the way. Some need a lot of detail. Some need it to be really fun. But when you get down to communication, you shouldn't be trying to communicate with somebody. You're not trying to sugarcoat things. You have to be direct. You got to be honest. I have a line that I love, and I hope players understand this. They know what I'm about to say, I hope. To be unclear is to be unkind. Mm-hmm. And for me, that gets into my soul. I don't want anybody that I'm coaching to feel like I'm unkind to them. So if I have something I need to share with them, it's going to be that they are going to get better. So I have to share that information with you, John. It's probably easy. I'm just going to tell you clean as day. Here, I need you to do this. That wasn't good enough. Here's what I expect. Go get them. And you're like, love this coach. This guy's awesome. Right. And then you can get after the opponent, whoever that opponent is on that given day. But the art and skill and those soft skills that we all want, they need to be trained. You need to be able to have like self-awareness of who you are, and not try to be somebody else that you're not. I've done that in my coaching career before. People read through that very, very quickly. It becomes very phony, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. You got to be authentic. Like I think, that's something I learned a long time ago, like trying cases in front of juries. Like you can try to be someone you're not, and people pick up on that pretty quickly. And something, by the way, that you mentioned about, repeating yourself, to be unclear is to be unkind. That's actually, I don't know if you pick that up someplace or you just do it, but it's a great habit. Like I study like a lot of like the greatest CEOs, leaders, and you see like all these common threads. And that's one thing they talk about is like, if something's really important, you have to repeat yourself over and over and over. And then people will realize it just becomes ingrained in them. But I think you could agree, right? Like this is what we're talking about. Like leadership is a journey. And like you're saying, I mean, you got thrown into this position, which was you deserved. And it's like 9 years ago. And then the next day it's like, yeah, like you were excited the night before, you're still excited the next morning, but now all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's time to get to work. Like, this is on you now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can imagine. When you think back, like going back to when you first got the head coaching position at Canisius, if you could, if you could go back, like, what do you think are some of the mistakes you made early on as a leader that you learned from, and that you try to maybe like teach younger leaders not to do, with your experience now?
Definitely a lot of, everybody has scars, right? You go back, nobody's perfect. We're not trying to be. What I was given some really good advice, and I'll start with it, and then it'll make sense because I didn't necessarily listen to this advice as much as I should have. I was told, hey, if it's not about your culture, let it go. Like, really focus on becoming a unified group. Now, I was lucky. The reason I was lucky, I was an assistant on the team for 3 years prior to becoming the head coach. We had a lot of success. Dave Smith was a great friend and mentor of mine, was the head coach. He then went to RPI. We had great success at Canisius. That allowed me to be, to walk into a really good spot. I didn't come in with a team that was at the bottom, which can usually happen first-time head coach, and I have to redo this culture. I didn't have that. I had to pick it up and continue, but the foundation was set, and it was a very good foundation. The other thing is I had the relationship with those players already. I had recruited most of them. They knew who I was. So I didn't have to pretend to be somebody else, because they would have picked up on it literally in a minute, being like, Trevor, that's not who you are. We know you. The nice part is I knew them. But what that first advice of, if it's not about your culture, you just let it go. You need to be a unified group to start. My error was definitely, I got in the weeds really quickly. I wanted to do everything, right? You take over, you're the head coach, and now I want to do everything. I'm talking about like designing new jerseys to making sure the sticks came in on time and tracking everything. It was like I was so involved in the weeds that I wasn't able to get big picture fast enough. And I can catch myself now. I like the weeds. I like tasks and getting those things done. And when I started to live there, I realized that I'm missing something. I'm not interacting with people enough.
Right.
And that for me is ultra important. So I'll literally go like, okay, that's enough tasks for today. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go interact with people. I'm going to go talk to somebody. I'm going to get to a player, right? Because I know my driving force are those connections. And if I miss that in my day, when I put my head on the pillow, I'm like, I'm not happy with today. So I got to wake up tomorrow. It's got to be day one. Got to start over.
That is really, really good advice. And I'll tell you, I'm not just saying this. I literally just went through this with myself, where we've been growing so fast. I love our team. I love every single one of them. Feel so lucky to go to work with people I respect so much every day. Doesn't matter what their role is. But I, like you, I can get really in the weeds, like, because I like it. Like, I like being super detail oriented. I like, digging in and helping people all over the place. And I was having this great conversation with one of our paralegals, and we're just talking, and I was like, how can I, be a better leader? And luckily she feels comfortable with me. And she was like, when you were, for those of us that you onboarded because we were so small at the time and you were so involved with, in the beginning, we all know, we talk about it, like, you're so approachable. We can come up to you. We can talk to you. You love the ideas. Like, you want the ideas. You want to know how we can get better. But maybe for some of the newer people, you're so busy and you're so pulled into all these things that, maybe you could spend more time with them, getting to know them at even deeper levels to build that trust, which will, of course, in turn, make them more comfortable, make them feel, that they can come to you with better ideas, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, that's such great advice. And it's just like, you can get advice from all these different people in your firm or on your team. And it's like, that's something too, like, I'm not even kidding. If I was asked the same question I asked you, that'd probably be a very similar answer that you just gave. And I'm sure a lot of people go through that.
And I think it's inevitable, right? So what you're explaining, just listening to that, is you've built such strong relationships with some Now this is the business of a college hockey team, right? Obviously, I have stronger relationships with guys that have been here for 3 years than I do with somebody that's been here for 3 months. And we all have a battery that we have in our day. And where are you spending that time? And for obvious reasons, if you have stronger relationships, you're probably going to end up talking with those people a little bit more. And you're not ignoring the others. That's not what happened to you. You're not doing that on purpose. But you have similarities in a great relationship with other people. Now you welcome new people in, and then you have to kind of think about, well, okay, I have to build those relationships as well. And we have that happening all the time when a new player comes in. I do find myself really trying to spend more time with the new, because I don't have to work so hard on a relationship with a player that I have for 3 months, or for 3 years.
Yeah, good point.
Right? We're going to interact naturally, but sometimes I have to remember, you know what? I haven't talked to this player in a while. I need to make it a point to make sure that because I need to seek out that relationship, because it doesn't go the other way, right? Most people are not going to do that with their leader or boss or head coach.
Yeah, it's true. And it's like the people on your team or in your business, whatever it is, they need to know you care about them. And I think the fastest way or the easiest way to show you care is just whatever it is in your world, sitting down and having a cup of coffee or grabbing lunch or whatever. Just like, hey, what's going on? Like, how's your family? Like, what's going on outside of work? Like, how can I help you? Like, and then you see people open up, and that's like, it's such a good lesson. It's huge, and it applies everywhere. It really does.
It is. It's you're trying to create that team environment, right? And if you're at work, it's like, what's winning the day in a business setting? It might not necessarily beating Clarkson on a Friday night. That might not be it, but how do you win the day, and how are you building those connections, and what is that culture? It's one of those things that I think all leaders learn. We can't make everybody happy either, right? Like, it's just impossible. And that is honestly one of the errors that I made early. I wanted all of the players to know that I cared about them, and I do. I wanted them to be happy in their life. I still want those things. But what I realized is I can't do that for all of them. I can't. It's too much, and it's not realistic. The game of hockey says this many players play, this many players on our team do not.
Right.
So it's inevitable. There's going to be people that are unhappy. It's okay. It doesn't mean we're going to ignore them. We're going to work with them, and we're always trying to get better. But there's a line that I love. I've learned this one too. I'm responsible to you as a leader. I'm not responsible for you. We're not mind readers. We're human beings as well. We want those relationships. We can't look at somebody and know what they are going through in their life if something happened. I'll tell one quick story because it was very real. When I was an assistant here, there was a player that was acting outside of his character. He was having he was complaining a lot in practice, and that really wasn't him. He was really frustrated. His coachability was extremely low, and that's not the way he normally behaved. And I think a lot of coaches, and maybe early in my coaching career, a lot of coaches would have honestly kicked him off the ice. Like, it was affecting other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of coaches went, gotta go. And I remember, as it was going on, I was just very confused by it, to the point where I went up to him after practice. And I think, again, a lot of coaches might just scream and yell and be like, that was inappropriate. You can't do that. Really bad practice,
Mm-hmm.
Just condemning them like crazy. I asked him, and I just said, are you okay? Because it wasn't his character.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. Immediately, emotionally, really broke down. And if I would have went a different way, I don't think him and I would have as strong as relationship as we do. He went through it with me, and there was a lot of things in his life that were happening all at once. And he was glad to talk about it, but the way he was taking it all in was to misbehave in practice. So I think a lot of times we need to remember that as leaders, people, if you see something that they're behaving outside of the way they normally are, that's a check-in. That's not a bury them.
Yeah, that's, it's funny. I was going to ask you, like, your approach, because we've all been there when you're building a team, a business, really a culture. And there's going to be times when, people who had been great team fits or good team players or whatever, good people, go off the rails and you start noticing it. And I was going to ask you your approach to trying to get those people back on track. And it sounds like it's as simple as just having a conversation saying, how are you doing?
That's definitely step one, right? I don't think getting ahead and, it's just understanding there might be something in their life that's happening that you're unaware of. And they may need to talk about it. They may not. It might not be the right time, and give them that time and, check in with them the next day. The reality is, if you're clear with what expectations are to participate on our team or your team or whatever those things are, you have to give some grace. One bad day can't be it's over. They probably had a lot of really good days and they built up that bank account. And if they make a withdrawal on a day for obvious reasons, like you can't bury people. So when those things happen, it's like, okay, well, let's build it back up. Let's understand what's happening. We're here for you. We want to help. If it continues and over and over and over again, well, that's a completely different story, right? If it's clear with what expectations are and multiple times you're ignoring what it means to be a griff, well, then we're talking about, I'll say way down the line, that's eliminating you from a culture. But the culture does that. It's not me. You're making the choice that you don't want to be here. And sometimes as leaders and bosses and people get fired every day. I've been cut from lots of hockey teams throughout my career, right? It's not the end of the world, but if you continually are doing, swimming upstream against our culture, it doesn't make sense, and it's easily seen. And a good culture needs to eliminate people that are fighting, drastically against it.
Yeah, for sure. Those are always tough decisions that have to be made, but they do have to be made, and you have to protect the culture, and you have to protect they have a saying, right? It's like the easiest way, to lose an A player is to tolerate whatever they're going to call it, like a D player or whatever. It really just means, your best people don't want to be surrounded by those who are like you said, swimming upstream, and yeah, sometimes you always want to try to work with people and give them the benefit of the doubt. And like you said, let them build that bank account back up. I like that analogy. But yeah, as a leader, those are tough decisions that you have to make, but you got to protect the culture.
Yeah. And that, this would probably be for another day, I think, but I'm sure we could do a whole episode on the art of having the tough conversation.
I would love to do that. Yeah, we're not going to be able to jam everything I want to talk to you about into one session today, but we're definitely going to bring you back. That's for sure. Something I wanted to ask you about, because it's interesting to me, especially without getting too far into like the hockey weeds right now with, all the stuff with major juniors and kids being able to come to college now and all that kind of stuff. But just in general, you guys in comparison are a smaller program. But you've had some great success. I mean, you made the tournament in recent years. What do you attribute that to, especially when you're going up against these programs that you can't outspend, especially in this current culture, in this day and age when teams can actually spend money on players? Like, what's your approach, and what do you think your key has been to success in working through that?
I think it's a lot of people that listen, right, John, are from Buffalo, right? And we want to expand that a little bit more, right? We just don't want Buffalo people.
Yeah, whoever wants to listen can listen. We're not going to stop you, I promise.
We want more, right? So I'm like, well, I know my parents in Brampton are going to listen to the podcast, so we got
awesome.
we got at least one
in
the Toronto area, right? But the reason I say that is because it is a part of who we are, right? Buffalo, when you get a little bit of the Oxford pennant influence on their building, right? Do you know what it says on their building?
Yeah, keep Buffalo a secret?
Keep Buffalo a secret.
Yeah.
So I love that. The reason is there's so many good things here, right? People don't understand. And we don't necessarily need or want people to know what Buffalo is about. but the people here do.
For sure.
I'll call it an underdog story.
I love it.
I'm not saying that Buffalo is necessarily an underdog, but I think there's that element of that's Buffalo. I think Canisius is similar, and I know our hockey team is similar. So when you talk about recruitment and who are we looking for in life experience, we want guys that don't necessarily, want for nothing and have to achieve these ultimate huge goals. It's just guys that understand, I don't care what you have. I know who we are, and I know what I have. And when we put our jerseys on, I'll see you at center ice. Right? We had one of those this past week, and I know, whenever this podcast comes out, it's not going to be today, right? In the cadence of it all. But our first game of the year, we just had this last Friday. We played Clarkson, their number 20 team in the country. That maybe can scare off some people. How are you going to beat a top team in the country? And I just go, just wait. And it is exactly what happened. We did end up beating them, and that's the great part of the underdog story, right? For one game to start the year. But the reality was they're a good team, and so are we. And they tried to run us out of the rink, and our guys smiled and said, great, let's play.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want, right? We want guys, and 2 years ago, we go to the NCAA tournament. We're playing Minnesota. Minnesota has this many NHL draft picks. We now have one on our team, by the way, so our list is a little bit shorter, but we do have one. Chase Clark from Buffalo is a Washington Capitals draft pick, and he played unbelievable this weekend. Little plug for Chase there.
Love it.
But it's like, how can we go out to Minnesota and compete? Now, I'm not going to tell you the final score because it was a lot to a little, but it was also, we had them in the second period, and we were winning that game 2-1. It didn't end up close because they got some late goals at the end, but we went toe-to-toe with the number one team in the country. We're not afraid to do that. We've had North Dakota in Buffalo to play them, to play them here. We swept them. That was a few years ago. So it's like, we want people and we want hockey players that don't care what you have. They go, let's put our jerseys on and we'll buckle up and we'll play. Right. So that's that underdog piece that is who we are. And that's why we can go and play against anybody.
Yeah. That's such an amazing mentality to have on a team. And I mean, they're going to carry that with them far past, their time at Canisius. It's funny too. When I was a senior at Miami, we were the number one team in the country. And before that, I'd never been on, I'd played on really good teams ranked very high nationally growing up, like stuff like that, but never like that. Right. And I remember being in the locker room and we were ranked number one basically the whole season and thinking, and I know there are probably some number one teams that aren't like this, but like, we weren't arrogant. Like we weren't like, we knew that every weekend we had our work cut out for us and that we could easily lose. Right. Like we weren't walking around like and I'm a backup goalie. So I'm not trying to say like I was like I'm the glue guy. I'm not making a huge impact on the ice, but it was interesting seeing that, being like, wow, I've never been in a room like this before where maybe from the outside world, people like the number one team in the country is coming in to, East Lansing or Ann Arbor or whatever it was at the time. It was just like, we're a team and we're number one today. We could not be ranked in 2 weeks from now. Like, it's interesting, that mentality. And it's awesome knowing that you're instilling that there with those players because it's powerful. I mean, it makes people feel like they can do anything, which is, again, these are life lessons that these guys are going to take with them far past Canisius.
It probably served you guys well, though. And obviously, and I'm trying to figure out, we must have overlapped in my time at Ferris and your time at Miami.
Yeah, I graduated in 06, so there's probably a little overlap.
So graduated 04.
Okay.
There's, I think your experience at Miami and was Jeff Blashill your coach?
No, it was Rico, but Blashill was the assistant. He was actually my goalie coach, which is crazy. Yeah.
I was Blash's first recruit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he was a Ferris guy, right? Yep. Yeah.
And I'm considered what I call Jeff Blashill's first mistake.
Oh, come on. I love Blash, by the way.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Love that he's in Chicago now with the Blackhawks and doing things. And always has been. I would say that you guys are probably similar to what we went through. We had 1 year in my time when I think we got to third or fourth in the country. Really good team, NCAA tournament. It's some of my fondest memories at Ferris. But it also came from, we didn't have success all the time.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right. The Miami program and that, like, you guys really started like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
But before that,
Yep.
good team, mid-pack, fighting through the CCHA that was unbelievable at the time. So it's like you came from there.
Yeah.
And then you guys took off and were just gone.
Yeah.
That's an important experience to go through as well. It's not just every year you expect to be, number one. There's so much work and effort that goes into trying to get there. And then it's even harder to continue to stay there.
Yeah.
Right.
So true.
You were probably built on something extremely strong there.
Yeah, very different. It's like something like, I think about hockey now, like in terms of like the lessons I learned, whether it's like learning to be comfortable performing under pressure, or the importance of attention to detail, like all that kind of stuff that takes you so far, in life after hockey, which, when you're playing hockey, it seems like that's your whole life. But as you get older and older, it's kind of weird looking back on it and being like, I've now lived in, like, say, the corporate world a lot longer than I even played hockey, which is weird. Almost depressing, we'll say, but it's awesome because I'm jealous. I shouldn't say jealous. Like I really look up for real, like, to people like yourself who followed their passion. And I was lucky that I ended up finding my passion in the law. I kind of fell backwards into it, and it could have made some mistakes where that wasn't the case. But I guess to kind of round things out here, how important do you think it is to, in your life, follow your passion and try to stay true to yourself and what makes you happy?
I mean, I hope people understand it's vital. It also changes, doesn't it? Right? Like, so it doesn't mean like, okay, I'm coaching hockey. I love this job. I really do, John. Like I love coaching hockey. Did I know I was going to be doing this my whole life? No. There was some risks that I needed to take to see if this was going to be where I was going to be sitting. I didn't know I was going to be sitting here as a head coach and at Canisius in Buffalo for sure. But just to share a little bit, when my days at Ferris were done, I went home and I got a job. I'm a computer programmer by trade. This is the year 2000, right? When I entered, and Y2K and,
Yeah.
Booming market and best jobs ever. Right. And I did, I went home and I was working a job. I like people. I like talking to people. And when you go, well, I'm a computer programmer at a very small firm. I didn't mind the work, but the reality was I walked in the office in the morning, said hello to Natalie at the front desk. I sat down at my computer. I did my work. I said bye to Natalie on the way out. Like, that wasn't it for me. I wasn't interacting with people. I wasn't getting that. So I made a decision, which to me still sounds crazy, but I left that job. I got very lucky to get a graduate assistant position at American International College. Gary Wright was the head coach there. He gave me my start. I'm super grateful to it. But I left a job in Toronto to go get my master's paid for and make $0 at the time, right at 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try this coaching thing. And you fast forward to a great experience for me at AIC. I went to West Point for 6 years and got great leadership development and Brian Riley and, mentors and friends. And, I get to play against his son, Brendan Riley, literally this weekend at LIU. He's a head coach and I couldn't be more excited for it. But it's like you go through all these experiences and then get to Canisius, and I didn't know these things were going to happen.
Yeah.
I took great risks. My wife now and fiance then met me in Springfield, Massachusetts, and we're trying to figure this whole chaos thing out in our, middle 20s. And then things change, right? Like, so now you're a head coach. My goals aren't accomplished. I haven't figured everything out. I go back and I think about my dad. My dad loved hockey, loves his family. My dad was a warehouseman for his entire career and worked at a job in one place from the age of 17, 18 years old until he just retired in his 70s.
Wow.
Right? Was my dad's passion shipping and receiving? I don't think so. I would need to ask him. I don't think that's true. But what he did was he provided for his family, and that's what he cared about the most.
Yep.
So to me, it doesn't mean if you're a warehouseman or a hockey coach that I found my passion and he did not. We go through our journey and those things can change. I'm now trying to do the same thing that he was unbelievable at. I'm trying to provide for my family everything that I possibly can. That becomes my journey and my passion. It just so happens right now I'm a hockey coach.
Yep. That's actually really great perspective. That's so true. I actually haven't really thought about that in that respect before, where, the passion for, we always think about it as, well, this person was a hockey player and now they're a hockey coach. Like, that's a passion, but like having the passion like your dad did, like, my dad did, and, for just providing for their family and being the best father and husband they can be. I mean, that's really true. And you're right. It does change throughout life.
One question, and I know we're going to circle up and finish. Like, it's a weird perspective, but I would ask you, John, like we both played hockey and we had goals, right? Like we wanted to play in the NHL, no doubt. Like at some point in our careers, that's what we were that's what we were going after. It's kind of a weird question, but do you think every NHL hockey player is super passionate about hockey and loves the game?
No. Like, right. I think you hear the stories of the ones that aren't. Like, which is, and it actually, to be honest with you, I guarantee you've played with players where you're like, man, dude, you are so skilled. Like, I'm talking like, I know guys that played at the national program that were so skilled that if they just loved the game, if they didn't like get burnt out or hate it or whatever, easily in the NHL, top two lines on a team for many, many years. But some guys just, they have that skill, they get in there and they hate it, which it's hard to understand, but also, I mean, I get it. It's like you love what you love, right?
Right. So that's that perspective, right? And now we're talking about trying to guide people to find what their calling is, right? And you're trying to find that passion in your 20s. It's probably your most influential time where you can try different things. It's hard for me to, pick up and go live in Texas if I thought that was something I want to do. That becomes more difficult now because I have some stability here and I have responsibilities that are different when you're 25 years old. And I'm not telling every 25-year-old just to, take off and go try something. It's not true. But it's understanding of, okay, who am I and what's my passion? And let me go try some things.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, right? I'm a computer programmer sitting here as a hockey coach.
Right. But if you take those risks on yourself and go pursue certain things that you think might make you happy, you think you're passionate about when you're really young, and like you said, what's the worst that happens? Like, you're not letting down your family. It's just you, right? You can always pivot back. And then you're never at least going to be like, at our age in the early to mid 40s thinking, man, I wish I would have tried that because it's too late. I can't do that now. Yeah, that's great advice. Well, look, man, this has been amazing. We're definitely going to do a volume 2 because there's a lot more I want to talk to you about, but it's always great when conversations go this way and we kind of lose track of time, but this has been amazing. Hopefully see you before the season's over, but best of luck this season. And I just appreciate your time.
Same, John. Appreciate what you're doing. And I think it's, we're both trying to do the same thing, get the word out, talk about things that we're passionate about, and hopefully listeners, take a little bit from it, grab a little snippet here, one little comment that maybe can help what they have going on, but obviously appreciate what you're doing and your time as well.
100%. Thanks, man. Thanks for listening to Angles. If this episode made you think, smile, or see something in a new way, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review and share it with friends. You can also follow us on social media. Angles is produced by Brett Tuttle. I'm John Richmond. See you next time.